Ocean Society friends. Truth, beauty, and goodness. That's what we're after. And we're getting it through the study of great literature. Michael Shara, Killer Angels. Dr. John Wilsey, professor at Boyce College and Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. Hey, Dr. Wilsey, we've been doing all this talking. This is actually video number 8 out of 10 videos. I mean, you talk about Gettysburg as if you've been there. I'm assuming that you've been there. How many times have you been there? And would you recommend it for our students? What's it like?
Yeah, I've been there a few times, and it is one of the most amazing places in the entire United States. It's truly, truly an amazing place. You might have been to a lot of different battlefields in your time, students, and like you might go to, I don't know, like pick any battlefield you might go to. And, like say you go to Yorktown. I like to go to Yorktown. Yorktown's a cool place to go. The U.S. Park Service has done a great job with preserving the battlefield and everything. And you do get a sort of a sense of how, what the dispositions were and everything. But Gettysburg is unique because Gettysburg, you have the cemetery, right? You have the cemetery that was there when they were fighting. I mean, they were fighting among the gravestones. When Ewell's Corps were attacking on the night of the 2nd, they were hand-to-hand fighting in the graveyard.
That's crazy.
You can go there and you can see where the headstones were blasted by cannonballs and things like that. But then there's also the Soldiers Cemetery, where Lincoln came in November of 1863 and gave the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah.
Then also there's monuments all over the battlefield that have been placed there since the battle.
Right.
By veterans groups, by private citizens, by whole states have state memorials all over the battlefield. Some of them are in really important central locations. And some of them are just real small little markers in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
But they're scattered all the way through, and you can just sort of feel the presence of the men that were there and fought there.
Oh, wow.
You feel the gravity of what happened there in a way that I don't think you can feel it anywhere else in any other battlefield, at least that I've ever been to.
That's amazing. Yeah. And another question real quick on that. A lot of times we watch movies, which is basically just about the only experience most of us have of any kind of, and we see literally a field, and you can almost, like, if you could sort of get a little bit of elevation, you could literally watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Gettysburg is massive. You can't see the whole thing. So talk to us just briefly about, you've already talked a little bit about the topography. This is not really a battlefield. I mean, I've been to Gettysburg. Honestly, I don't remember any level ground, but talk to us about the size of it. I mean, it would take a while just to drive through the whole thing.
It does. It takes a while. It's about 20 square miles total.
That's crazy. It's way bigger than we think.
It is. It's much bigger than we think. And if you see the movie Gettysburg, you still sort of have this sort of compressed view of what it would have been like. It's huge. It's massive, and it's difficult to imagine. Think about it this way. There were about 160,000 or so men engaged at Gettysburg between the two armies. 160,000 men. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I don't remember what the population is. I'm going to look it up real quick, but I wonder, what is the population of Jefferson County, Kentucky?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say 20 square miles. I mean, that's a town.
Okay. Well, Jefferson County is pretty big. 782,000, not that many people at Gettysburg, but 150, 160,000 men.
Yeah.
That were there, that were soldiers.
Yeah.
Plus there were about 10,000 people, and I don't know, maybe not even that many. I think 10,000 people is how many live there now. Back then it would have maybe 1,000 people or something like that.
Yeah.
Think about the town of Gettysburg has swelled almost 15 times the size of the town. The number of people, and then the number of wounded, and then the number of dead in the time that we're talking about. It is of truly epic proportions we're thinking
Yeah.
about.
Well, before we dive into, we're in the middle of day 2 here, and we're gonna kind of wrap up day 2. And no, wait. We're starting the first half of day 3. Sorry about that. I'm getting mixed up myself. Can you talk about a little bit about the practicality of you? We talked about them fighting from 4 to 9, and you said something about what, 7 or 8,000 casualties
On both sides, yeah.
Okay, total. Okay, so you've got literally thousands of bodies littering this massive territory. When and how are the armies tending to the deceased?
That's a great question. The Union army was much more efficient at that than the Southern Army was. But in general, if you were wounded on the battlefield, you pretty much were going to lie there for the duration of the battle, no matter how long it took.
Okay.
So you read the accounts of the people that were there, and they all talk about the same thing. They all talk about the moans of the wounded, calling out for water, calling out for loved ones
through the night.
Through the night, and the moaning being intense at the beginning of the evening, and then dwindling as people would die during the course of the night. I say that the Union was more efficient. They and also they had they were on the defensive, and so when night fell, they could actually collect their wounded in a way that the Southerners couldn't really do that. The Union men would collect wounded from both sides. They would bring in wounded from both the Confederate and the Union side for medical attention, medical care. I mentioned William Barksdale from Mississippi. He was shot through the body, I think 3 times, and he survived for a few hours, and he was picked up and brought in to a Union hospital behind the Union lines. He died the next morning, early in the morning on the 3rd. But anyway, all that to say that there's a book that I'm very fond of. If your students are interested in this at all, it's a short book. I have it sitting on my shelf around here somewhere. It's called The Smell of Battle and the Taste of Death, I think. And it's a sensate history of the Civil War.
Oh, wow. I know they'd be interested in that. Well, just give us the title again.
Well, I'm not sure that's the real title. Now, see, I'm doubting myself, and I can't find it. I'll have it for the next video.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well,
remind me. No, anyway, it's something that would be surreal for us. It would not be something that any of us have ever experienced before. Being surrounded by dead and being and hearing the moans of the wounded.
That is yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. So students, we'll pick that up in the beginning of the final video. We'll get that title. That just that sounds like a book that I'd be really interested in reading as well.
It's a page turner. Yeah.
So we've left off, and one of the striking things I think we've noted about this battle is that it still is not crystal clear who is going to come out on top. And Dr. Wilsey, I think, has just done a great job of kind of keeping us on the edge of our seat. He's been talking a little bit about if this and if that, and 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there, and how things could have been totally different, how the whole battle wasn't even really on Lee's radar from the beginning. So some really fascinating things. So that's where we still are. Friday, July the 3rd. We didn't start fighting until 4 p.m. on Thursday. A lot of marching, a lot of preparing.
Yep.
Set us up. How is Friday like or unlike Thursday?
Okay, one other thing that happens on Thursday evening. Remember Jeb Stuart? He's been gone all this time.
Yeah.
He finally shows up
Okay.
the evening of the 2nd.
Okay, Thursday evening.
Yes, Thursday evening. He is finally finds the Army of Northern Virginia, and he finally rides inside Confederate lines. He knew that Lee would be angry with him. And I think General Lee said something like, where have you been, General Stuart? And Stuart was young. Stuart was only about 30 or 32 years old. He was sort of looked up to Lee like almost like a father.
Mm.
And Lee looked at him like kind of like a son. Stuart was killed the next year in 1864 at Yellow Tavern.
Oh.
And when General Lee found out that he had died, he wept.
Yeah.
He didn't weep for a lot of people. He wept for Stuart.
Mm.
So when Stuart wrote in, kind of like when you know that your parents are upset with you.
Oh, yeah.
But you are trying to kind of give yourself the best representation possible.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sure all of your students have been there. Maybe some of them are there right now.
It could be.
Could be. So Stuart responds to Lee and he says, General, I've brought you 200 wagons full of, supplies that he had captured from the Union along the way. And Lee said, they are an impediment to me now. He said, I ask you to help me fight these people. So Lee was clearly indignant,
Yeah.
and angry at him.
Yeah. Now that happens Thursday evening?
Late in the day.
Late in the day. Okay. Okay.
So he is there for the fighting on Friday, on the 3rd.
Okay.
Stuart actually has a massive cavalry engagement behind Union lines, and he fights a Union cavalry unit under General George Armstrong Custer.
Okay. Okay.
And he is defeated. Custer defeats him.
Wow. Okay. Behind lines. Okay. So, but Stuart survived. You said he was killed a year later.
He was killed a year later,
Okay.
just outside of Ashland, Virginia, our old stomping grounds.
Hey, buddy, we've been there a few times, haven't we? Remember the Smoky Pig?
I do. Remember Virginia Center Commons?
I know. Sorry, students. We can't get together without reminiscing a little bit. I mean, come on, we don't get to see each other.
That mall, Virginia City Commons, is right near Yellow Tavern, where Stuart was killed.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting off track. Friday. So Friday morning, are we going to wait till 4 p.m. to fight on Friday?
No. Early in the morning. I think Lee wakes up about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh,
which was normal. It's dark, but that's normal. He has a brief breakfast with his staff. And he already knows what he's going to do because he went to bed the night before and he had already settled in his mind what he wanted to do.
Okay.
The day's fighting on the second day, on Thursday, heavy pressure on the left, heavy pressure on the right. And units from the Confederate Army had actually crested the Union position briefly at 2 different places by 2 different commanders. So Lee thought it only would take one more shot, one more try. But the effort had to be coordinated. That was what he thought was missing on day 2, was that they fought well, but we hadn't coordinated our efforts. On the Union side, as I said, Meade was maybe a little bit of the mind that we should remove ourselves from this position, but all of his corps commanders say, no, we should stay. So he says, well, we're going to stay. We're going to stay. He gets up in the morning, 3 o'clock before dawn, and while he has decided what he wants to do, he hasn't communicated any of this with any of his commanders. So he goes out in search of General Longstreet. I think that he did get a message out to Ewell. I think he might have gotten the message to Ewell sometime in the morning that he was going to have another diversionary attack, Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill. So early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I told you about Edward Johnson. Johnson was a division commander under Ewell, and Johnson had captured some of the Union trench lines on Culp's Hill the day before, on the evening of the 2nd. And the Union attacked that position in full force to retake those trenches. And so they were successful in doing that. The Union was able to recapture their abandoned positions that Johnson of the Confederate Army had taken the night before, drove the Confederates off of Culp's Hill completely. So that fighting was happening early in the morning, but it was over by about noon.
Okay.
Lee found Longstreet maybe about 10 o'clock in the morning and explained to him what his plans were. They are strengthened on the left and they're strengthened on the right, and they're weak in the center. And so take Pickett's division. Pickett's division was the only one of Longstreet's 3 division commanders that had not been engaged. Hood had been engaged. McLaws had been engaged on the 2nd day, but Pickett was not engaged. His whole division, 5,000 men, they had been marching from Chambersburg. So they weren't even actually up yet with the whole army. So they made it to Seminary Ridge, or about 5 miles from Seminary Ridge, on the night of the 2nd. So his orders were to take Pickett's division and then units that had not been engaged yet from the 3rd Corps, from Hill's Corps, and have a directed, concentrated assault on the Union center at Cemetery Ridge. It would involve about 15,000 men. Now, Shaara in the book has Longstreet say to Lee, I've been a soldier all my life. I've seen fighting from squads to companies to battalions, every level, all the way up to armies. And I can tell you, no 15,000 men can take that position. He said, I've been a soldier all my life. No 15,000 men can take that position. He had argued with Lee all morning long, and Lee would have none of it. Lee was absolutely determined. And Longstreet would say, in fact, in Longstreet's memoirs that he wrote after the war, From Manassas to Appomattox is the title of his memoir. He said that when Lee's blood was up, you couldn't argue with him. His blood was up. He was convinced. He looked out over it. He said, the enemy is there, and I'm either going to whip him or he's going to whip me. It was against every fiber of Lee's being to withdraw from a position. He was used to holding. The way you knew you won a battle in the 19th century was that you commanded the field on which you had been fighting. So either the enemy had fled, you had destroyed the enemy army, or they surrendered. But you were in control of the field at the end of the day. That's how you knew you'd won. And Lee was accustomed to that. Yeah. Even at Sharpsburg or the Battle of Antietam. That was a strategic loss because Lee had to withdraw back to Virginia. But at the end of the battle, he held the field. And he was in control of the field. So even at Sharpsburg, which was a Confederate loss and a Union victory, it was tactically a victory because he controlled the field. So for him to leave the field, what Longstreet wanted to do was abandon the field and Lee just wasn't going to do that.
So back to my my football illustration, Longstreet's percentage here is a 0.01%, somewhere around there. This ain't going to happen.
Nope.
No, you said no 15,000 men could do that.
Yeah, I think that Shara has that quote in his book.
Yeah.
I know it's in the movie. I know it's in the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
But he did say that. That's exactly what he said to General Lee.
Mhm.
And it was Shelby Foote in his history of the war. I think Gelzo too. I think Gelzo says this too, that his Lee was tired of him, bucking the system. He had been arguing with Lee the whole time that they were there, all 3 days. And this was on the third day when he was given the order to advance on the Union Center, that his response was bordering on insubordination.
Oh, wow. So are we ballparking? What time of the day are we at right now?
This is the late morning of the third.
Okay.
They've had an engagement, a small engagement over on Culp's Hill, and it's a Union victory over there. They've retaken their trench lines that they had constructed.
Okay.
Now, another strange thing about Longstreet is that he was going to command this assault, but only one division, only about 5,000 men were under his command. The other commands under Johnson Pettigrew, who is from North Carolina, he was with the Third Corps, and Isaac Trimble was a brigade commander. He was under Hill as well. He may have even been under Ewell. I can't remember. But Pettigrew and Trimble were not in the First Corps. So most of the men that were engaged in what would be called Pickett's Charge were not even under Longstreet's direct command. They were under Hill's for sure, and or Ewell's. So that was very irregular. But here's the thing to remember. What in Lee's mind, this is another reason why Lee thought that they would win. About half of the brigades, and remember the brigade is the sort of the basic unit on the ground of a battlefield. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think about half of the brigades in the Confederate Army had not fought at all, or had only been lightly engaged.
Okay.
So for this last effort on the third day, he was going to throw in most of those brigades that had not been engaged at all. So in his mind, these are fresh troops that are going to be going in. Hill had suggested that he support Longstreet with his corps. But Lee's response to him was, no, I need you in reserve in case Longstreet's efforts fail. That's the only time that Lee ever hinted that the day would not be successful.
Okay. I'm wondering if that is probably a good, will we have time in the next video to, okay. And then we'll hit the big picture questions. All right. Let me do this really quickly, students. I want to do this like every other video. I want to make sure that you guys are keeping up. There it is. Now, this has been video number 8. Man, Dr. Wilson, you're a trooper, my friend. Video number 8 out of 10 total. Tomorrow is Friday, I guess, if you're looking at it from Shara's perspective. So we're going to finish Friday tomorrow, and then I'm going to do a final video, just a really, really, really big picture stuff. Our final video with Dr. Wilsey is going to be video number 9, which is the next video. You think we're close enough to the finish line? I think we can bring this home. So students, what I want you to do before you watch the next video is I want you to finish it up. All right, finish the whole thing. And Dr. Wilsey's going to be back tomorrow to help us wrap it all up. See you then, friends.